Welcome to the Life in Michigan podcast. Life in Michigan is more than an online magazine. We share the stories, experiences, and vibrant personalities that make the Great Lake State truly unique. In this podcast, we bring you inspiring, heartwarming, and sometimes unexpected conversations with people who call Michigan home. From the rugged beauty of the Upper Peninsula to the bustling creativity of Kalamazoo, we'll cover the stories and define what it means to live, work, and play in Michigan. Today we are thrilled to welcome Mary Stewart Adams, a store lore historian, celestial storyteller, and passionate advocate for dark skies. Get ready to be inspired, enchanted, and maybe even transformed as we journey into the night sky with Mary Stewart Adams. Mary, welcome to the Life in Michigan podcast.
It's really a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I think, for folks that are listening that may not be familiar with who you are and what you do in your Storyteller's Night Sky website, maybe give a little background on you and your journey into celestial storytelling.
Yeah, I can do that. So I have lived in Michigan all of my life, which is a surprising thing to say, although technically I spent 2 years in New York City that sent me straight back to Michigan. And I earned my degree in English literature.
Oh,
So not in astronomy, not in science, but I also, during my time as an undergrad, got really interested in the night sky, more from the perspective of the cultural history of humanity and not so much from the environment, although these things quickly bump into each other.
yeah.
And the reason for me that they kind of collided was that I started to realize that if we don't have access to the night sky, if we can't see it, if we don't know the names, then we are losing our cultural history. And it's not, I at least wasn't taught star names, where those names come from, what the beliefs were, what the rhythms of the rising and setting are. You learn things like the waxing and waning of the moon and certain fundamental things about the celestial environment around us. But it was the cultural stuff I was after because striving to understand the stars has motivated some of the highest achievements in human culture throughout history. And some of the first records we have of human beings on the earth is a representation of someone trying to demonstrate a knowledge about what it is to be human on the earth in relationship to the stars, which were always considered divine beings,
Yeah.
and what becomes of that. So what I was after I graduated and just kind of on my own, not intended for academic research by any stretch of the imagination, but did we just forget or were they wrong? Right?
Yeah.
So then it's how do you find out? And I have to say that it was, I would call them forces of destiny that brought certain things across my path that would open doors to more questions. And eventually, when I moved to Northern Michigan in the early 2000s, I found myself with an opportunity to speak and teach about the night sky, but from this cultural perspective. So there wasn't a title I could take. Like I wasn't coming as an astronomer, not as an astrologer.
Yeah.
So I made up a name.
What
And
is that name? I love the name. Read it, but
yeah,
I know our listeners. Yeah.
star lore historian.
Oh,
That's
it's so
awesome.
beautiful.
Yeah, I have to share that a friend of mine, he has his PhD in the history of economics, and someone referred to him as an economist. He said, no, an economic historian. And I was, there it is, our lore historian, because that allowed me the freedom to access astrological ideas if I needed, or astronomical ideas, or poetry, fairy tale, history, anything that could help me build a ladder as a human being on the earth toward the stars and what I'm experiencing in the night sky now. What is it?
Yeah.
How do we know what that is? And it's been a very, very rich experience
Wow.
doing. So out of that, I try to abbreviate this, but ultimately that led to my leading the team that established the first International Dark Sky Park in Michigan, which ended up being only the sixth in the United States and ninth in the world at the time. There are over, I don't know, maybe over 200 now. So
Yeah.
we were really kind of catching the wave as this movement was just starting to gain attention. And out of that work, it became pretty big news in Michigan. And that resulted in an invitation to start a weekly radio program with Interlochen Public Radio, which has then translated into this weekly podcast known as The Storyteller's Night Sky. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's one way to tell the story.
Yeah, yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Um, so what was one of your most favorite things about creating that park there, the Night Sky Park? I mean, one of your favorite memories of that
Oh,
experience?
wow. I would say the serendipity of how it happened,
Okay.
right? It was very clear to me that I needed to teach about the night sky, but kind of how do you do it? So
Yeah.
I bumped into somebody on the tarmac at the Harbor Springs Airport. He had a big camera. I thought he was just a photographer. And he came running across the runway when there was a Young Eagles program going on where they take students up and give them, a flight over the bay and to try to
Oh,
raise
yeah.
excitement and interest in becoming pilots. And so I have 4 children, and my kids were going off one by one in these planes, and there were all these other people. And this guy came running after me with this camera. Are you the mother? Are you the mother? And I just thought, I'm always the one with the most kids. I must be the person you're looking for. And it turns out that I wasn't. There was a student there that had written an essay and they won flight lessons. And that's the person he was looking for. But later I had the gumption, we'll say. He and I were standing next to each other. I said, well, aren't you going to take my picture anyway? He said, that depends. Are you famous? I said, in my world, I am. He said, well, what do you do? I said, I teach about the stars. And he like, Hollywood? I said, no, in the night sky. And we had what I thought was a very casual, candid conversation. And the next day he called me and said, I'd like to read this to you. He had written an article about everything that I said. Turns out he was a reporter for the newspaper, and this article landed on the front page of the newspaper the next day.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So this was him seeing, experiencing what I was telling him, and as a reporter thinking, this is really important.
Right.
And so he made my initiative his mission. And he started to look for ways. This man's name is Fred Gray. He died just a couple of years ago, but he made it his mission to make sure that the people that he was aware of in the community that should know about this work were aware of me. So the president of the community college, the county commissioners, eventually he started working for the county, and he said, there's a park that the county owns in Mackinac, and it's dark up there. You could do your programs up there. And I was like,
Yeah.
great. And he introduced me to a woman that was involved in issues around outdoor lighting. And she said, there's this organization that will designate lands for natural darkness. You should contact them. So it was coming out of this storytelling. I could even say it came out of a once upon a time. There was this woman seeking a star, and these people kept showing up. And it was quite serendipitous. And I love that aspect of it because for me, that was the foundation on which the whole thing rests.
Yeah.
That if you seek a star, in Michigan, we have our motto, if you seek a lovely peninsula, look about you. But if you seek a star, it will find you. Right? And I
Yeah.
can say that as it might sound quite poetic or even fantastic, but I have a lived experience that it is so.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So,
It is
so,
amazing.
so what did, first we went up there in 2020, and it was just amazing. I mean, there's something just mesmerizing about seeing all the stars. When you see, here we're in Ann Arbor, so it's very hard to see the stars,
Yes.
And when you get to some place that's really dark and you see, the Milky Way and all that, you can't help but be just mesmerized by that.
And lifted. You're lifted.
Yeah, yeah.
And something in
It's
us lifts up, and we so need that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
on a regular basis, like every night.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's the natural way it should be. Like every night there should be this,
yeah.
Yeah, it was 2020 the first time you went there?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that the county purchased the property in the mid 1990s, and it was kind of protected by the fact that it was never used for what it was intended. Going way back, there was a lot of logging industry up there, but a fire had gone through that area. So that what became known as the Headlands property kind of was left. And in the 1940s, it was purchased by, oh my gosh, I'm going to say his name, Roger McCormick, and he intended to build a lodge there and to have it as a place where he could stay when he was sailing. He was an avid sailor in the Great Lakes. And he built a kind of like a guest house, changing rooms and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And so it was kind of like just a really social place, not a home.
Yeah.
And then he had intended to build a lodge up on the ridge that's there. But then he died very young. So
Oh.
this was the early 1960s, and the family came into possession of the land, and they, in order to honor his devotion to indigenous peoples and Native American culture, they adopted a program from the University of Oklahoma where in the summer months they would sponsor indigenous students that were seeking degrees in medicine and healthcare. They could come to the Headlands and receive tutoring and schooling and stay for the summer. And so that went on for probably about 30 years. And then the state of Oklahoma said, okay, we want that program back. And that's when Emmet County got the opportunity to purchase the land. So then they bought it, still had this really odd looking house. It was built in a style of architecture called brutalism,
Oh.
right?
Wow.
And so it's sitting there just right on the shore.
Yeah.
And so that was mid 1990s. And I showed up in 2008 or nine, just kind of knocking at the door, like, you've got this dark property, we could protect it. When I first went into the county board meeting, and they said, you want a sky park? Like, are you
What would
trying to
we
sell
do
us
here?
land on
Yeah.
the moon? Like, what?
Yeah.
And I just said, well, get ready because people will be coming and they will come from around the world. And they laughed at me. But because it doesn't cost anything to do this, they unanimously supported it. I mean, that wasn't the only reason. It was a great
Right.
idea. They're like,
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
And so when we got the designation in 2011, it was kind of splashy news. It was a big deal.
Mhm.
I happened to know that 1 year later, the planet Venus would be transiting the sun. This is a rare astronomical phenomenon. Only happens every 120 years in pairs that are 8 years apart. I knew it was coming. We were perfectly situated geographically to see it. And we had more people in the park in that one day than they had had, like, almost the whole time they owned it. They're like,
Oh my gosh.
how are you doing this? It's
Yeah.
not, I told you people would be coming. We just need to, give a stargazer a place to stand, and they'll
Yeah.
tell you about the world. But so anyway, we that level of interest really accelerated the kind of latent plans and ideas that the county commissioners had for the property. There were no bathrooms. There was no sufficient meeting space. There was it wasn't really suited to the activity that started to happen. There was no parking lot.
Yeah.
And so what you saw in 2020 was something that happened starting probably around that time in 2012.
Yeah. The facilities were great. I mean,
Yeah.
So then
yeah.
then we built the what we call the event center and the stage area. It's kind of shaped like it's kind of an oval
Yeah.
Mhm.
there right on the shore. And it's interesting, while we were building it, I had a very strong sense that there's deep history on that land with the Native American people. There's maritime history, and the lake can be really powerful right there. And then we've got all of this, magnificent that's happening overhead. And that the convergence of these things at that place where the stage is was really powerful. So I reached out to Frank Edowagishik, who's a tribal elder, and I said, Frank, it might be a good idea for us to do some kind of ceremony at this space, not to protect the space, but to protect those who come unknowingly into this place because the energy is so dynamic. And when you stand on this stage and you try to address audience, I mean, you've got the lake behind you and the history beneath you and the stars overhead. I mean, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we did a beautiful ceremony there with his wife and my mom and another friend on March 25th, a couple years before the building was done. And I think those things, those elements are still there. Honoring the land, honoring the people that are there on the land, honoring the direct relationship to environment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What would you, for someone that's coming up there to visit for the very first time, what would be a message you would share with them? Something they should try to either watch for or listen for?
I think the most important thing is to have an idea in your heart and mind what you want to see before you get there, so that you are not reliant on technologies once you're there. So there are apps that you can get on your smart device that are really cool.
Yeah.
When you're in a dark sky environment, there are a few things more offensive than
Yeah.
Yeah.
your neighbor pulling out their phone, and also heartbreaking that
Yeah.
that's where we go. Um, Even though the technologies are amazing. So I, know what direction you're looking, right? So the views from the headlands are primarily northwest, but you're looking out over a Great Lake. And so this is the area where you will have the least amount of light pollution. And when you're looking kind of northeast, you've got the tree line there, and you're looking toward Mackinac City and St. Ignace. So there is some light pollution that's coming into the sky.
Hmm.
The interesting thing to note about a dark sky park is that a qualification for it does not have to be that it is absolutely the darkest place. It's that it's the those who steward the land are dedicated to raising awareness about the harmful effects of light pollution,
Ah, okay.
teaching about the right use of light at night. And there are beautiful hiking trails there. It's just a lovely environment to be in. So you want to be prepared, but prepared before you go, something comfortable to sit on. Know that it's cooler there because you're on the shore, at least by 10 degrees from what it is inland, and to be mindful of others that are there because people seek quiet and solitude in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, when we were there, there was some sort of thing happening, and I can't recall. I have to go back and read the article. But it was packed. I mean,
Yeah.
there were like literally hundreds of people there. The parking lot was full. We had to get there like way
Yeah.
ahead. There was some sort of meteor shower, I think, happening, or
Yeah, when there are meteor showers, or if there is the hint of a prediction of northern lights.
Oh.
I can
oh
tell you
yeah,
that after 10 years of leading the park, that was a question that I learned to not really care for too much. When
yeah.
can I see the northern?
I don't
You know,
know
and
when
the,
they'll
and
show
the
up.
ideas about it and the technologies for predicting it change over time. Still, it's a natural phenomenon that even when it's predicted, it doesn't show up. When it's not predicted, it shows up. So I got to the point where my answer to that question was it shows up when we need it to show up. And
Yeah.
I have had just tremendous opportunity to see it twice. I've had this experience when I, for a while, was narrating cruises with Shepler's Ferry Service. We go out at night,
Uh-huh.
out on the straits, and during the time of the peak Perseid meteor shower in August, we go out at midnight. And this
Okay.
just happened last year. We were out at midnight overnight, the 11th to the 12th. So you get on the boat in Mackinac City, you cruise west under the bridge. We're floating out there on Lake Michigan. The better part of the Milky Way is visible because in August, that's when we're looking into the galactic center. So you've got the richest part of the stars and of the star field in the Milky Way. And the Northern Lights came out, and we were out there for 2 hours, and the Northern Lights the entire time while you've got falling stars. I mean, it's just like all of the phenomena.
Oh, I got goosebumps
Yeah,
everywhere. I'm like, oh my
amazing,
God.
amazing. It's also, in that environment, at the Headlands, you get these magnificent sunsets because you're looking west over a Great Lake,
Hmm.
that's unparalleled. And then with the Straits, you can get it where you've got sunset and moonrise simultaneously in these
Wow.
watering environments where it's not always easy to get that. So it's beautifully situated for just observing celestial phenomena that way. Yeah.
It's a
Fantastic.
powerful place for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure. Um, I'm going to switch gears slightly. and talk about your weekly segment that you did for Interlochen on public radio. That's recently you just did your last
For
uh,
Interlaken, but it's also, you can still, I still do it every week and it's on
oh
podcast. Yeah.
so if our listeners wanted to hear it, they could just go to your website and pick up
You
the
could
next.
go to my website, or you can pretty much find it at whatever podcast site you use if you're someone that listens to podcasts. If you just type in Storyteller's Night Sky, it will show up. You might go to Interlaken too, though, where they've got over 10 years of archives.
Okay.
But then, yes, it's still weekly ongoing.
Oh,
And what I do is, I could give a plug for Michigan State University. They have a wonderful calendar called the Abrams Planetarium Sky Calendar. And it's a great resource for seeing what are the highlights in the week or for the month.
Ah.
And it's a paper, like I much prefer maps to apps. You get a monthly map. On one side, it shows you here's the prominent stars overhead for the month. And then on the other side, it's a calendar about highlights of things to see. And I kind of read this looking for, listening for, paying attention to dates, poems, ideas that just stir in me when I look at phenomena. So, for instance, this week, last night, in fact, here in Ann Arbor, the moon and Jupiter were magnificent after it rained. I don't know if you got to see that,
No.
but Jupiter is
no.
right near one of the stars that marks the horn of the bull of Taurus. And the night before, the moon was next to the other one, and it was the eve of May Day. You know, there's so much story in that. But so what I do each week is look at, all right, what story can I bring to that? Um, Jupiter is the largest planet, and it's standing next to a star that means celestial gateway. So it's like the doors are open wide. And the moon was next to the star that means the budding horn or the budding one in the Taurus bull. So it's like, all right, now how to not get butted as you're going through the door. This turning point in the cycle of the year. May Day is about this turn in the season. It's called a cross quarter day. And how do you get through that turn and not get kicked on the way through?
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
And then you can look and see, is that really going on in my life? Is that
Right.
just a fun picture about that? But I have found that sometimes I have to be careful about what I'm saying is the story in the stars, because then I have to live through it. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh,
Ah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
that is so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm
Okay, I
always,
have to come back to this story right
Yeah.
here.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Well, my next question in my list was how do you choose which events? And you just answered that question for us, which is like pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's allowing myself to have a very active imagination, which is not to say just making things up, but an imagination that is to have a, a willingness to imagine something and then see if it's so. Does it hold? Like what is it in a fairy tale or in a nursery rhyme, when these things that seem to come out of a cultural belief, are they speaking to something that's real that human beings experience, and can you find it?
Yeah.
Like, hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon, the little dog laughed to see such a sport, and the dish ran away with the spoon. So there's this potential reference to the celestial environment with the cow jumping over the moon. And if you go through that door, it's like, okay, where's the cow? That's Taurus. And the cow, let's see, the moon is new in Taurus in May. What else is going on? Leo is rising up. There's the cat. Lyra is also rising up. There's the fiddle. And the little dog, Canis Minor, is beginning to set. And the Big Dipper is directly overhead. And the Milky Way is as flat around the horizon as it can get. And it seems to disappear from view, like a dish, you could say.
Yeah.
So there's the whole ditty. And it's possible that that ditty which is deeply culturally embedded, was a reference to the stars.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or trying to teach like those.
Yeah.
Trying to teach it. And so then I held that idea for a long time. And then one of my daughters said to me, well, are there any others?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering is
Yeah.
are there
There are. I've written a
patterns?
book about it called The Star Tales of Mother Goose. But yes, there are. And so when you it's like looking for stars and everything.
Yeah.
But in order to look for them, you have to like know things about them, their names, the constellations they belong to, the seasons. It's a long study, but it's delightful because it's starlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But have you seen like patterns in terms of like cross-cultural, like where different cultures are, because we're all on the same planet, and especially in North America, we've got European culture, we've got Native American culture. So, have you seen that kind of cross purpose where the the observed phenomenons in the sky have been witnessed by multiple people and they're kind of feeling the same thing, or is it different
Yeah, sometimes
interpretations?
there's that coincidence of things, and other times it's the cultural beliefs they kind of touch, but then they're not always exactly coincident. Like
Yeah.
the Big Dipper in the constellation Ursa Major. Ursa Major is regarded by most cultures as a bear. The
Right.
bear is a creature of the north.
Yeah.
But so, for instance, we're right now uh, in this next week, we'll come through the peak of the Eta Aquariid meteor shower, which is not really that active for us in the north. However, it is something that you can see here. And when I was looking for it, so I'll just tell you how I'm thinking, oh, is next week's podcast about that? And then I go searching
Uh,
and things that I have known along the way, but the what would be regarded as the water pot in the constellation Aquarius, and it's the radiant for this meteor shower is near that region. That water pot in Arabic culture was regarded as a tent, and in Chinese culture it's something else. So it's the same three stars, and they're, depending on the culture, it's
yeah.
recognized as something significant, but it's informed by lived experience on the earth.
Yeah.
And so there's that. I think that's it's beautiful that way because it's so diverse.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not just one thing, um, but it's striving for this kind of harmonizing and affirmation of one's cultural experience in
Yeah.
relationship to the stars. Yeah.
Wh- what do you think it is about the stars that evoke that need to tell stories, or is it
Well,
just the
yeah.
innate factor of humans want to tell stories, and so the night provides you know an inspiration for it?
I think if we look back into ancient cultures and to things that were said as late as Plato and later, there was an understanding and an idea that every human being comes from a star, right? That our point of origin is not the physical stuff on the earth, but that we descend from the stars and take up the physical. And then when you watch that idea, the way it evolves in the consciousness of human beings over the different epochs of history, you can see that it kind of metamorphoses into something else.
Mhm.
Eventually you get to the, yeah, religion intersects in there and different ideas about the true nature of being human, of being of body, of soul, of spirit, to, okay, no, the human being is physical, there's just one life, to Earth is not at the center, the sun is at the center, it was a big bang, there's black holes, there's random asteroid strike. I mean, these are different ideas from one held thousands of years ago that you come from a star. After you've lived here, you go back to your star.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that this what holds through that is this sense, I think, of a connection. We don't live outside of the environment in which we find ourselves. We can build structures and um, have technologies that separate us. Nonetheless, we're living on the earth, which we refer to as a terrestrial body, but it is in a celestial environment with other planetary bodies and star systems, and we're in that. We're
Yeah.
not outside of it, we're in it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we are of it, and it is
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
So
I,
I think that speaks to this sense that, gosh, we belong to that, and it belongs to us.
yeah. It's it when you were. I was thinking of Carl Sagan. That we're stardust.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because in astrophysics, you'll hear this said that we are made of the same elements that we find in the stars. But this idea is rooted in this sense that a star goes through a life cycle, and at the end of which it will kind of supernova, and the elements are cast out into space, and then organic life as we know it is rising from that, which is different than like Plato is saying, okay, when the first mover is creating everything, there is created equal number of souls and stars, and each star has a soul and each soul has a star. And then this being of soul, spirit, nature incarnates on the earth. And then when you're done here, you go back to your star. So it hasn't gone supernova. It's still there.
Awesome.
And then being able to read the star picture doesn't determine the life, but can inform, what did I bring with me from starry worlds to have this destiny that is unique among all human beings on the earth, because no two of us are doing the same thing here.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome.
It is awesome, right? It's like,
It is.
wow. And so then I'm kind of, whenever I hear this, like, oh, when I look at the sky, I feel so like insignificant. I'm like, no, the majesty of the sky should really affirm the majesty of being human. It matters.
Yeah.
Not because we have huge egos, but we are consequent in our environment, and we are making choices that have an impact on our environment. We have the technologies to do what we need in order to safeguard habitat, but we don't do it.
Right.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Right. And the research is there to demonstrate how the inappropriate use of artificial light at night. This is not to say that there's never any need for artificial light at night. There is, but its inappropriate use is severely damaging natural habitat. It is a waste of our energy resources. We dig things up out of the earth to generate energy, and when we are using it for light that's spilling up into the sky, we're just throwing it away.
Yeah.
And also the effect on healthy human circadian rhythm. So that can interfere with good sleep patterns, and interrupted sleep and poor sleep is connected to every major illness that plagues the human population. So it's very quickly learning about the night sky and trying to protect natural darkness gets away from just, oh, I want to be able to see the stars, into, oh,
Yeah.
I'm having an impact in my environment that's having a consequence at many different levels. And if I take care of it, then I get this bonus of seeing a beautiful night sky. Not like a forest where I have to wait 100 years for it to come back. I just turn off the lights, it's right there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic.
So now that you're back, well, not back, but now that you live in Ann Arbor, you're no longer in the northern dark sky. How do you stay connected when you're in a more urban environment? I mean,
Okay, I'll answer truthfully. Oftentimes I'm seen out in the parking lot, the townhouse where I live, in my pajamas, looking at the sky. And I will do ridiculous things like pull up the curtain to look at the moon from my bedroom. So the light of it is getting into the bedroom, but then I have to block the window again because I've got a big light out there. I've been back in Ann Arbor. I mean, I grew up in Southeast Michigan, so it's not like this is foreign territory to me. However, I moved to Northern Michigan in 2002. So this was just at the beginning of, not too long into people having personal computers and cell phones and smartphones and social media. And the technologies have really changed the environment rapidly. So now that I'm back, I'm still a bit in shock, just in terms of the um, the light, the noise, the technologies that dominate this environment, and it makes it hard to sleep. But so what I still am out at every chance I can. I'm watching Venus in the morning sky. I'm looking for the planets in the evening sky. Of course, I'm not looking for meteors in my parking lot, but I try to stay as connected as I can. There are good parks and hiking trails
Yeah.
in the Ann Arbor area, but I was really spoiled. I mean, I was living right on the shore of Lake Michigan with an untouched forest and sky and water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michigan is fortunate that way, that we have so much shoreline.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're getting ready. We've been planning a little trip up to the UP. Uh, we're gonna be in Cedarville for a
Uh-huh.
short time. Then we're gonna dart across the UP and we're gonna go over to the Keweenaw and we're gonna stay on Lake Superior for 3, 4 nights.
3 nights, I think. Yeah.
3 nights.
Yeah.
So you
And
know there's a dark sky park up there now.
in
Oh,
the
there is?
Kimono?
Yes.
Oh, where
Yeah.
at?
Gosh, I brought that up and then I can't. I haven't been
We
there.
can
It's
Google
up in
it.
the
Yeah,
We
we,
can
Kimono.
Google.
yeah.
Yeah.
We,
They have a big festival each year in April. There was an initiative started by a young woman that around the time of the new moon in April each year, there should be a dark sky week. And so that really took hold. And they have a big festival up there each year in April. And then also right here in Ann Arbor, there is a group of individuals for Michigan Dark Skies, and it's spearheaded by a professor of astronomy here at the university. So I've worked with them mainly a few years ago to help establish a lighting ordinance in the city of Ann Arbor, which is a good thing to have if there's a dispute. It's not easy to enforce it, but it's in place so that then if there's a dispute, you've got this agreed to ordinance that can guide decision making about how light can be used in the environments here.
Do you have suggestions for like just local areas where you can experience the most of the sky?
You know, there was a comet that was visible a few months ago, and I went searching around, where do I go? And I found myself out at the municipal airport,
Oh,
right?
really?
You want this long view across the horizon.
Yeah.
You want it to be as open as you can.
Yeah.
Um, so that's one thing I've done.
at the Ann Arbor airport?
Mhm,
Really?
yeah.
I would
Yeah, we're
I
not
would
far
think
from
that
there.
we're not far from there, but I would think that the airport would be one of those places where there would be lots of, um, unnecessary light,
Only
right?
if there's planes coming in, you know. I mean, yes, in Ann Arbor, it's light polluted. There's a light dome over all of it.
Yeah.
But if you're in Ann Arbor and you want to look for a comet, you got to get somewhere where there's not a lot of obstruction at the horizon. And while I was there, I only had my binoculars. I am a naked eye observer, right? So I don't carry a telescope around, but I did have my binoculars with me. And there was an older man that was leaning up against his truck, and eventually he came over and asked if he could take a look. And it turns out that he's somebody that we had never met, but we knew of each other. He was a professor of cosmology here at the university, and my youngest daughter had him as a teacher. And I was planning to have him as a guest speaker at the Headlands, but I left that park just before he could get there, so we never met. But then there we are out at the airport, and I thought, well, this must be the place. If you've come here, then that tells me that this is the place to come if I'm in Ann Arbor and I want to
Right.
see the sky.
We're gonna have to head over there, Chuck.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, so then you would probably know better than I where the places are. I mean, right in town, it's not easy to find anything
Yeah.
because there's too much light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can see the brighter objects.
yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously the Arb
Yes,
because, it's
and I'm just a stone's throw from there right now.
but that's still pretty polluted with light when I think about it a little bit. I mean, it's
Right, there's no light in the arboretum itself, but
Yeah.
around it,
Yeah, the
it's all lit
hospital's
up.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Mm.
lots of light over there. Yeah.
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 or maybe even over on Bird Hill, but it's not open. It's all trees,
It's all
right?
trees, right?
So there goes that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really looking for that's why I ended up at the airport. It's open, and because there wasn't any air traffic, the runway lights weren't on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
But if
Nice.
it's really big phenomena that you don't want to miss, then you get out of town.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go away from city lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of over in Pinckney at you can go to the top of, although there is a little light there still, Peach Mountain,
Yes.
which
Oh,
still
I
has
think
an
the
old
university has an
observatory.
observatory
Yeah.
over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
been there?
No, but I have a friend that has a cottage there, and I remember always seeing the sign as I drive up. Is it North Territorial?
Yep. Yeah.
There's
North
the
Territory.
sign.
Yep.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
also, um, there are many astronomy clubs around in Southeast Michigan, and sometimes it helps to have a telescope if you're in a light polluted environment. So it's fun to watch what they're doing. So I know that Michigan has one. They have a funny name. I can't think of what it is. University of Michigan, the lowbrow astronomers
Oh,
here at the
that's
University of
fun.
Michigan. Then there's the Ford Astronomy Club and the Warren Astronomy Club, and Michigan State supports a lot of that activity. So yeah, there are some avid stargazers everywhere. Yeah.
So you've been an advocate of the dark sky movement for a long time. What changes have you seen over the years, both encouraging and discouraging in that arena? Or
Well,
maybe concerning?
yeah, the thing that is most concerning is that as we develop technologies and launch satellites for blanketing the world with the internet, we're creating a lot of, low Earth atmosphere pollution, but then also that quickens civilization, and with that comes light pollution. So light pollution is still outpacing the dark sky movement in its awareness around the world. Like, there's more light pollution every year that's moving faster than awareness about why we need to protect night skies.
Oh.
So that's kind of discouraging. But what's exciting is that there are more and more dark sky parks being designated all the time, which means more people are becoming aware. And when nature magazines like National Geographic or Orion, some of those that are still well respected and well known, draw attention to the night sky movement, then that's really helpful. And for me, it is there aren't many voices that I've experienced speaking out of this cultural relationship. There are many that tell stories, and in Native American culture, there's strong storytelling about the relationship with the stars, but to really try to build from a contemporary sense and not just look back at ancient traditions, but really, do we have these kinds of relationships now? It's kind of a challenge to say this is legitimate, this is real,
Yeah.
belongs to us. It matters that we know it. And what would be ideal, I think, is if we would introduce into our curriculums learning about the night sky and also about star names, because every culture around the world has a star lore. And most cultures have an origination myth or a myth of creation that
Mm-hmm.
begins with the stars. And so following those paths to the naming of the stars and the organization of the constellations is really an education in cultural appreciation, and that's really needed. So it's a bit like a fairy tale where the hero is told you have to, move that mountain by tomorrow morning or it's
Right.
off with your head. I mean, he doesn't go dig at the base of the mountain. That's not the way it's going to work. He's got to
Yeah.
do something else. Some virtue is going to come and help, right? So we have these issues around challenges between different cultures. And how do we find common ground? One of the things you can do is like, wow, let's look at the star knowledge that blanketed the world
Yeah.
and see the points of contact and intersection where we can share.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's in that respect, it's peace work, like PEACE, peace work.
Yeah. 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 That's perfect because it does lend itself to not only like just being able to share that knowledge, but then also, uh, you know, make it current for your life today, right? As
Right,
opposed to, like you were saying, bringing in something that's arcane, stories that don't matter, but how
Mhm.
does this apply to me today? How does this, you know, sadly, a lot of people want to see a benefit. What is my
Right.
benefit from this? And
Or
so,
does it, is it just that the moon is having an effect on the tides?
yeah,
It's not necessarily looking for an astrological answer that, oh, you're going to be more emotional because the lunar
right,
forces are leaning in. It's not that.
yeah,
It's that, are there things that we can recognize that are happening in the natural rhythm of things that have a consequence in human life that we can actually participate with by paying attention? There's the migration of butterflies and birds and nocturnal pollinators. I mean, the spring, I mean, it happens right in front of us. Like, first there's this sheen over everything, and then bud, and then all of a sudden there's leaves, and we're watching it happen. But it's like, how is that happening?
I know. That's why
Yeah.
we were on a walk the other day, and I was just thinking like how spring just boom, there it
There
is.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Red buds, and first the forsythia, and now we got all the red buds, and then the
yeah,
magnolias. I mean, and it's just so we aren't isolated from whatever that is.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
living in it.
Yeah.
And for me, and this might be a stretch for others, but for me, this is connected to the earth in relationship to its environment of stars. And it's a reality that certain things come over the horizon in this season that don't in other seasons. And so there's a relationship to that. The Milky Way isn't as visible to us right now, but then it starts to rise up as the temperature increases. And we get actually furthest away from the sun at the beginning of July, when for us in the Northern Hemisphere, the temperatures are warmer. Like these are
Yeah.
fascinating phenomena that there is an explanation for it, but I want the like, what's the cultural practice that belongs to that that can enrich the life? Is it possible?
Yeah.
So, like taking what you just said there and thinking about your May Day story at the beginning, like how would you translate that into today, like the cultural story for
Well, I'll
today?
tell you what I did. I looked into the sky and I saw that, Jupiter's been hanging around between the horns of the bull and Taurus for a long time. And then I saw that the moon would be going by exactly on May Eve, April 30th, which is in the calendar exactly opposite All Hallows Eve or Halloween.
Uh-huh.
And then when you start to look at cultural traditions around the eve, you see that there's oftentimes an expression of mischief. Like
Yeah.
something gets out, something has to be expressed because now you're going to turn toward the fulfillment of the season and you got to get that like out of the system, it seems like to me.
Yeah.
So the cross quarter day in the winter is, we call it Groundhog's Day in the United States. So it has something to do with inner light. The opposite time of year is the beginning of August, little known, but it's called Lammas for loaf mass. And this was a time when you would, in agrarian cultures, you would have a blessing of the first wheat harvest. So to ensure a bountiful harvest. In the spring, we have May Day, which is all about health, human health and fertility. And then in the autumn, you have All Hallows with Halloween, which is all about honoring the dead, right? So inner and outer, birth, death, like this is across the quarters of the year. And then on the eve of May Day, so this shows up in Goethe's Faust. There's also this wonderful book called The Romance of Leonardo da Vinci that was written by a Russian whose name I cannot pronounce, where there's a description of the witch's Sabbath. William Butler Yeats wrote a poem about it, the land of the fairy, all about what happens on May Eve, where you can be like kidnapped into a world that if you don't know about it, it's like protect yourself. And one of the ways to protect yourself is to like lay a flower at the threshold. You put a flower down at the door. It's May, right? You're
Yeah.
stepping over this point in the cycle of the year.
So is
And
that why people put potted flowers or pansies on their deck or outside their
but
door?
also flower wreaths on the door, or why you would give that. It's the language of the flowers in this season means to uplift and protect and to bring love and beauty. So these things they're beautiful, but also they do have this cultural rootedness. Now, not always, it's not always coming from that, but
Hmm.
oftentimes it is connected to this relationship to the cycle of the year when we had fewer technologies to separate us from that. And it was more understood. What does it mean that we're at the turning point in the season? We're not at its beginning, we're not at its end, we're halfway through, and there's a turn.
Yeah.
And that was always celebrated.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It
Yeah.
really is. And then there's so much poetry and art and cultural tradition that comes out of it. And it feels like, wow, we're so bereft. There are those things.
Yeah. 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 Wow. So, what would be if if someone wants to um, to take some steps to try to like improve their the I guess help to alleviate light pollution and preserve dark skies. What would be some things that people here or in southern
Just
Michigan could
like
do?
Chuck and I could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first things you can do is turn on all your lights and then go outside at night, step away from your living environment and look at where the light is going.
Okay.
Is it shining into your neighbor's yard, into their windows? Is it going beyond the boundary of where it's needed? Is it the right amount of light? Is it the right strength? Is it actually increasing your ability to see at night, or is it creating glare? Because a more gradual lighting is better, especially as we get older, because it takes longer for the eye to adjust to dark environments.
Oh,
So if you're
yeah.
in the dark and then all of a sudden blast of light and the pupil contracts, it takes another 20 minutes before you can see again. And that can be dangerous. So
Mm-hmm.
look at what light is doing in your own environment that you can actually control. You can make decisions about it. And then you could find out through the Dark Sky Association, darksky.org, whether or not there's a dark sky chapter in your area, and find out what they might have by way of resources if you want information. Astronomy clubs are a great way to find out if there's activity around teaching about light pollution. You can contact your city or your county to find out if there's a lighting ordinance. And then those kinds of things are much more civic minded. But for me, there's also the necessity for poetry. So then it's looking at what are the phenomena that are happening in the sky that I
Yeah.
can be aware of. So, for instance, knowing that there's a meteor shower that peaks next week, or that the Milky Way is not visible right now, and actually I only see it in the summer months, or we see it in the winter too, but just in this season, we don't see it that much.
Yeah.
Getting informed um, about what's visible, because it raises awareness. If it's true what the ancients believed, that each of us comes from a star, then that's in us. And then when we wake up an awareness of our connection to the stars, it's like the stars begin to shine,
Mm-hmm.
and the star in the other also wants to shine. So something happens in the kind of like a, I wouldn't say psychic, but just kind of an energetic experience.
Symbiotic. Yeah.
Yeah, some people are just more sparkly than others. I don't know how to say it. You're connected to something that is like, wow, I want to know that. I want to
Yeah.
know that stuff.
Yeah.
It matters to my well-being as a human being on the earth that I know my environment
Yeah. Well, and
more and more. Yeah.
yeah, knowing and like you were mentioning, just knowing, understanding all those different stories, all those different references, all those different poems and creative arts that have been generated from that, right?
Yeah.
That,
And yeah, yes. And I think also I mean, the idea that we each come from a star really grabbed me the first time I heard that. And
yeah.
then it's like, well, how do you find out? Whom do you ask?
Yeah.
Where's the person that knows? And so that leads you on a certain journey, like then realizing, oh, do I even know the names of the stars? Where do I get that information? And then that's also, whom do I ask? And if I ask, the internet gods, that's one thing.
Right.
If I go to a human being, or I go to a map, I go to an atlas, I go to a book, like all of these things have their part in the quality of our lived experience. And so, how do we build the connection? How do we build the relationship? It's a little bit like, not knowing the star names can be like living in a neighborhood and not knowing your neighbors' names.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If we put it in that kind of social context.
Yeah.
So we're almost at, I knew that this interview was gonna fly. I mean, and I have so many more questions, but is there, I have one more that I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you, but is there anything else you want our listeners to know or be aware of or to think about um, before we wrap it up?
The thing that rises up in me right now at this moment, probably because I mentioned his name earlier, is that Goethe says this wonderful thing: beauty is everywhere a welcome guest. And I think there are a few things more beautiful than an unpolluted night sky filled with stars. And that it's such a comfort and an affirmation. And I think it's very much needed. And so the more we can go out of our way to see a night sky, I think the more effect it will have, because the longing for that access can change things, can change decisions we make about the way we live.
So my last question,
Okay.
what's your favorite Michigan constellation story that you tell? What's your favorite one?
Oh my gosh, let's see. You should have forewarned me.
Sorry.
I mean,
Well,
but
it doesn't have to be a favorite.
you said Michigan constellation, so I want to know what that means to you.
Well, one that you can see here in Michigan, right? Because not
Yeah,
all of the star constellations, like when we were in Hawaii, we could see constellations that we couldn't see here, right?
right, right.
So, or even like, yeah.
Down
So
in the Caribbean,
what,
you can see different things than you can see
yeah,
here.
Right.
yeah.
So we are in the northern hemisphere mostly. There are 5 constellations that are overhead every night.
Okay, one of
And
those.
they're referred to as the circumpolar constellations, and they never set.
Wow.
And so it's not so much a story, but it's like the beginning of many, many stories. When you look at, okay, what are these constellations? There's 2 bears, a king, a queen, and a dragon. And that's overhead every single night, every night. Right. So there are many, many tales. Beowulf is tucked in there with the king and the dragon. There is the the 12 dancing princesses. It's Goldilocks. There's so much that lives in just those 5 constellations. And it's not necessarily even the mythologies that come from Greek culture that are connected to those stars in particular, but so many fairy tales. One that I particularly love it comes out of they're battling right now. A lot of stories are jumping up to like, no, this one, this one, this one. There's a tale that the indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes region tell that describes a celestial phenomena in, I think, a really brilliant way. And it has to do with a star maiden. And she's the youngest daughter of a family that belongs to a tribe. They have 3 girls, and the 2 older daughters marry, and they tease their younger sister about not getting married. And when she finally chooses a mate, she chooses an old, old man. And her sisters can't understand, why did she choose such an old man? And they're teasing her all the time. And one day they're going off to a festival celebration, and they're going through the woods, and they come to a long hollowed out log. And the old man, they had to keep stopping and waiting for him, but he gets to the end of this log and utters some words and runs through it. And when he comes out the other end, he's young and he's handsome and he's strong, but now his wife, the youngest sister, is old and old, and now they've got to wait for her. And there's a moment where this man utters some words, and they all begin to lift up off the earth. And the youngest sister and her husband become similar in age to one another, but all of the sisters turn into birds. And they go into the sky, and it turns out that this man is the son of the Sky King. And so they live happily in the Sky Kingdom. The sisters are put in these beautiful golden cages, and eventually they have a son. And the son gets old enough to go hunting with his grandfather, the sky god. And one day he says, "Can't we hunt those birds?" And so the Sky King opens the cage, and the birds, which are the sisters, fly out, and they all begin to descend now to the earth once they've been released. And they get smaller and smaller and smaller until they're no larger than fairy folk, and they land on the shores of a beautiful island in a beautiful lake. And if you are of right mind, when you pass through this region, you may see them dancing on the cliffs. And so this island is Mackinac Island. And this is a beautiful tale that I hope that I've done it justice in telling it this way. But what's happening there is potentially connected to the relationship between the planet Venus and the moon. So when Venus is our evening star, you could say that, excuse me, let me start this way. When Venus is morning star, like it is right now, Venus is young. Venus is at the beginning of a cycle. So it's this young maiden. And when the moon passes by Venus in the morning sky, it's waning. It's at the end of its cycle, so it's old.
Yeah.
And then when the opposite is happening, when we have Venus in the evening sky, then Venus is old, you could say at the end of its cycle. And when the moon passes by, it's waxing and it's new. So you have this dynamic relationship between Venus and the moon at either horizon that's kind of built into this story. that just, you don't even have to know that to live
Yeah,
in the mystery of it, but it's really beautiful.
that
And
is.
that kind of a tale shows up in Greek mythology about Tithonus and Aurora, the goddess of the dawn. Same thing. She wants him to. She asks Zeus for eternal life, but forgets to ask for eternal youth. So he keeps getting old, and she
Oh.
wakes up every morning as the dawn, and she's young and she's beautiful, and he keeps getting old and older. So just really these lovely ways of storytelling about waxing and waning and the dynamic relationships. And then how does that look as social relationship with human beings on the earth? I love that kind of thing.
That is awesome.
So if somebody's curious and wants to know more of these tales, would your book, The Star Tales of Mother Goose, be a good place to find
So
some?
this, yeah, Star Tales of Mother Goose is specifically about Mother Goose. Yes, there's 10 or 12 nursery rhymes there. I could also recommend for the Native American tales that are specific to the Great Lakes region, there's a wonderful book called Star Songs and Water Spirits.
Okay.
It was edited by Victoria Brehm, Brehm, and it's like a Great Lakes reader, and it's all the tales in this region. And then there's also a book that was published in 1899 that's still available called Star Names, Their Lore, and Their Meaning by Richard Hinckley Allen. And he was fascinated to learn that the stars had names and they had different names in different cultures. So granted, this is from 1899, but he's
Yeah.
as much research as he could do included all of the constellations and the known star names. So that's
Wow.
an excellent resource. But then you want to get a star map. So something like Michigan State University Abrams Planetarium's sky calendar. And then you find the star name that you like, you find the constellation that it's in, you look on your map, you find out where you can go to see it, and let the journey begin.
That's awesome.
I can see it coming in our world really
Yeah.
quick.
Awesome. Well, Mary, thank you so much for being on the Life in Michigan podcast.
Well, thank you for seeking me out, for asking me, and to talk about something I love very, very much. It's been a pleasure.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to catch every episode of Life in Michigan. Help us spread the word by rating the show, sharing it with your friends, your neighbors, your family, your mail carrier. Share it with everybody, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay connected by following us on our website and social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, take care and have a fantabulous day in Michigan.